Who didn't have a broken heart before? You look at the shambles of a relationship, realize you want different things at some point during a dating phase, or find your love for someone being unreturned. Dealing with a lost relationship of any kind and bearing the emotions that come with it is probably one of the inevitable challenges of life. Here is a neuroscientific view on the process, as well as 4 reflection questions to help you process that loss. Hey there, welcome back to the FlowLab channel. I'm Ava and I'm a psychologist and head of content at FlowLab. If you haven't heard of FlowLab before, we discuss anything related to psychology, self-improvement and well-being on this channel and try to shed light on both the science as well as practical tips for everyday life. But we also have a mental fitness app that helps you develop focus, motivation and self-confidence and productive flow states more often with guided meditations. If this sounds interesting to you, check out the description for a 50% discount code off the yearly subscription. Also, if you like our content, it would be amazing if you could support us by giving this video a thumbs up and hitting the subscribe button. This helps us to produce more videos like this in the future. When brokenhearted, it can feel like a world is taken from you. Grief and feelings of loneliness color your daily life and your loss seems omnipresent. Everything in your surroundings reminds you of the other person. As if it was mocking you, the world gloatingly demonstrates how it just keeps spinning. You see all the people around you living their normal life, going to work, meeting their friends, doing their groceries, and you just don't seem to relate. Like you're cut off from the rest of the world and are alone with your sadness. You play out in your mind how things could have turned out differently or indulge yourself in memories. In these moments, doesn't it feel like these feelings will last forever? There doesn't seem much you can do when feeling brokenhearted, but to give it time. And yes, while time heals all wounds, there are in fact a few things you can do to feel better in the short and long term. Perhaps you already know on a rational level that the breakup was the right decision. And yet it takes longer to feel that on an emotional level too. And there's actually a scientific explanation for that. From a neuroscience point of view, love resembles an addiction. The release and decline of neurotransmitters when going through a breakup resembles the withdrawal of a drug addiction. Dopamine, serotonin, and oxytocin that usually give us a great feeling are now very low. For example, let's look at dopamine a bit closer. Dopamine generally makes us feel good, but also it motivates us. Meaning, when smoking a cigarette or eating chocolate, for example, dopamine is released, gives us a feeling of pleasure, and then when we finish the cigarette or the chocolate bar, dopamine levels drop again below baseline, so they are lower than before smoking or eating chocolate. And this drop feels so uncomfortable that we want dopamine to rise again, meaning we want more of that thing that gave us pleasure. We want to smoke another cigarette or eat another piece of chocolate, which is the motivation part of dopamine. It's a similar mechanism when in love. Dopamine is released and whatever we experience with that other person becomes more pleasurable. But when we break up and dopamine levels are very low, it's awful. We crave for the other person, which can, for example, express itself in a sudden urge to text them. Or we attempt to get easy dopamine from eating ice cream on the couch and watching TV. In a study, the brains of 15 young adults were scanned who all went through various stages of a breakup and reported still being in love with their ex. When confronted with pictures of their ex-partner, the brain scans showed higher activity in the ventral tegmental, the ventral striatum, and the nucleus accumbens, all parts of the dopamine system. But if you watched our other videos on dopamine, you know that a release of dopamine is usually followed by a drop. And this drop makes us feel awful and increases cravings, just like when withdrawing from an addictive substance. But even when you think that this pain, these cravings go sky high, just know that it's a moment that will pass. We need to give our body the time to naturally restore balance again and let our dopamine levels rise back to baseline. And to make this time easier, you can try a little detox. Avoid reminders of the other person, for example, get rid of photos, belongings, gifts, whatever reminds you of them, or put them in a box where you don't always see them. Don't stalk them on social media or indulge yourself in daydreams that won't come true, because this can prolong the rehab. Perhaps archive your chat and so on, as if going cold turkey on a drug. Apart from that, try to get your dopamine not only from snacks or watching TV, basically activities where you don't have to put any effort, because they will make you get a quick hit of dopamine, but then will be followed by a painful experience, a low, cravings, sluggishness, and so on, aka a dopamine drop too. I won't take away these things of comfort from you, but on top of them, try to also engage in activities that are first somehow painful, or let's say effortful. A cold shower or exercise are on a physiological level a painful activity that will increase dopamine levels, but without initiating a dopamine drop afterwards. So, long story short, try a dopamine detox where you avoid any reminders of that person, and perhaps engage in exercise instead for at least 30 days and give yourself time to process. A breakup is also an opportunity to grow, to get to know you better and what is important to you. So if you like, you can use that time to focus more on yourself. Here are a few reflection questions to start with. The first days after a breakup are usually the most awful. Even if you manage to distract yourself for a moment, at some point it snaps back to reality, and being reminded of your loss feels like a slap in the face. It can be an omnipresent pain that overshadows whatever you do. And while it may feel as if stuck in this valley forever, perhaps you can observe these small positive changes. After a few days, maybe it's not the first thing you think about when waking up in the morning. Maybe there are small moments of joy where you feel a tiny bit of ease again, a feeling of being connected to yourself and staying true to your needs and principles. No matter how small and insignificant they might seem, try to become aware of these little changes and focus on the things that are moving into the right direction. Letting go of a person also means letting go of the possible future we pictured in our minds. All these little daydreams and experiences stacked into an illusion we imagined to have at some point burst like a bubble in just a moment. In his book Alone, Daniel Schreiber describes that as an ambiguous loss. You're mourning something you've never actually had. And this ambiguity can make it hard to make progress in one's withdrawing process. While it takes time to accept that this future remains an illusion, you can also start thinking about an alternative, perhaps more abstract future that can fulfill you. Begin by becoming aware of what is really important to you and why. Who do you want to be without your ex-partner? If you had a long-term relationship, it may have felt as if sharing parts of your identity. And now that the other person is gone, you're wondering who you actually are. It might take a while to figure that out, so try to be patient and self-compassionate. And then become aware of the situations where you have this deep feeling of being on the right path. When do you feel alive? When do you feel grounded? And what are the moments you feel most authentic and connected to yourself? It doesn't matter if you think about the times you spend with people who are important to you, relationships of any kind, or rather activities or places. Just let your mind wander freely and see what comes up. What are the values you want to live by? Do you look for routine, stability, loyalty? Is it important to you to continuously grow? And when you allow the thought of a possible future independent of your ex-partner or ex-affair, do you have the vision to settle, buy a house, have kids or a dog? Or maybe the vision of an independent spirit who travels the world and lives in a community with their closest friends? These are, of course, very simplified examples, and there are endless options in between. But just try to open up to different possibilities and get closer step by step to who you actually want to become. A breakup is often accompanied by ruminations, and you may ask yourself, why me? And while the focus shouldn't be on what's wrong with you, this difficult phase can still be an opportunity to take this question apart and perhaps identify patterns. If you think about your dating life, are there relationship patterns that tend to repeat? Are there similar conflicts, similar personalities you attract, similar feelings and doubts? Because if so, you'll also become aware of the underlying needs you're trying to satisfy here. For example, you wonder why you always feel attracted to these highly impulsive, emotional people who seek drama and with whom the relationship always turns out to be somehow toxic. But when reflecting on your own patterns, let's say you observe that you're very emotionally avoidant. Could it be that dating someone who is very emotional and impulsive can help you to live out the emotions through the other person that you don't allow yourself to feel? You could also think about patterns when it comes to breakups. Do you always break up with others, or do others always break up with you? Because if there is a pattern too, you could go on and ask yourself, do you struggle with intimacy? Or maybe to accept responsibility for your own happiness and set boundaries. This reflection process can be painful too, and at the same time make you feel more self-determined again. Knowing what you want to work on to break old patterns and allow for something better to enter your life gives you a new direction and helps to let the feeling of powerlessness fade away. It takes time to find answers to these questions, and you probably need to ask them over and over again to get closer to the core. Perhaps ask people close to you who know you well if they observe certain patterns. And of course, you can always consult a coach or a therapist to guide you through this process too. When brokenhearted, it can feel as if losing the ground under your feet. Of course, it also depends on how central that other person was to your everyday life and which priority you assign to that relationship. What can help here is to think of your life as being built on different pillars. All these pillars are resources that give you stability, make you feel balanced and grounded. A romantic relationship may be one pillar. But what else is there that you want to build your life on? Which other people in your life are so important for your happiness? Which projects or activities make you flourish? How grounded do you feel in yourself? What do you do to care for yourself? And also, what pillars do you want to invest in the future to create a kind of safety net? Because even if one pillar breaks away, there will be multiple other pillars to hold you. Sometimes it's tempting to compensate for a loss by substituting it with one particular thing. Say, after a breakup, you invest all your time and energy into work now. When staying with this metaphor, though, you'll see that in the long run, your life won't be as stable when built on one single pillar either. So rather than overcompensating, try to invest in multiple pillars that support you. A breakup in the future won't be less painful, but you'll have resources to support you, to show you that your life consists of more than this lost relationship, and to make you feel seen and valuable. I hope this video could give you a few new impulses on how to deal with a broken heart. If you enjoyed watching it, it would be incredible if you could give this video a thumbs up, subscribe to our channel, and hit this little bell to get notified when we upload new videos in the future. I wish you all the best and see you in the next video.